it puts pressure on us in a good way because we're very accountable, and it's very different to a full-time hire where you can essentially buy time as a full-time hire, kind of point a finger. With us, if we're not doing a good job, we can just get turfed out at any given month.
That's true. So you got to prove yourself.
You have to prove yourself.
Day.
Yeah.
This is Momentum with Sidekick, the podcast where we explore what's shifting in business and in leadership and what it means for you right here and right now. I'm Bonny and this is Nora. We're both with Sidekick, where we help leaders to turn complexity into clarity and ideas into action.
And today we are joined by a special guest, the one and only Dave Berney, one of 10,000 Irishmen in Toronto, I've learned today, or Irish people, men and women, but who's counting. But Dave is a CPA and ACA who's worked with companies big and small, from the global giants like Grant Thornton, US Bank, and Pfizer, to small and fast-growing North American startups like Gander Social, Inflex Technologies, and Unlimited Life, and more.
And many more.
But if that's not enough, you're also married with 2 little kids and love to play sports and be athletic in your spare time, from ball hockey, hurling. And then, you obviously have a ton of time on your hands. I hear you're like a chapter lead. You're running all of these events for Irish accountants in Toronto. So, wow, you've got a lot on your plate. Yeah. So thank you for squeezing some time in to chat with us today.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Really
excited. Another big event coming up in March. I forgot to say earlier.
Nice.
Yeah, we had Mark Carney at it last year, so it's not considered a small event. I'm on the organising committee this year. Kick off the celebrations up to St. Patrick's Day. We're having
cool.
Ireland Funds Canada luncheon, so there should be a couple of hundred people at it. It'll be a nice day out.
That's very cool.
Nice.
Yeah. Very, very nice.
Mark is invited this year. Pierre is invited.
You're on a first name basis.
We send out the invites, but it's been radio silence.
I got my invite. So pardon? I haven't got my invite yet.
When you become leader of one of the political parties, Nora, yours will be coming too.
I will never get an invite, is what I'm saying. But jokes aside, excited, and thank you. We know you're very busy running HAB Strategy. So very excited that you are joining us today. And today, we're going to talk about something that I think is a good element around the theme we've been building on in a lot of our conversations, where there seems to be this heightened pressure around uncertainty, complexity, things moving fast, and trying to explore leadership from a different element and challenging the idea that leadership should not be designed to be stable. But given everything going on, would love to explore as a group today this assumption that senior leadership roles must be full-time roles, or is there another option that's more fit for purpose, that looks at fractional leadership that can help drive smarter growth, diversification, and so on. So excited to join.
Intersection of our favorite topics.
Yes.
Uncertainty and leadership.
Exactly.
Yes.
So as the president and founder of HAB Strategy and your own journey through fractional leadership, maybe you can start off by telling us a little bit about your journey to start HAB Strategy, as well as, your engagement and what brought you to be in a fractional CFO capacity and then build a company based off of fractional roles.
Yeah, it's an interesting story. As Nora mentioned in the intro, you can tell from my accent, I did not grow up in Toronto, so moved here about 8 years ago. My life up to that point, like work life up to that point, had been in the multinational space. Working some very big finance teams. You're talking like hundreds of people, like finance teams that were bigger than entire companies, and very sophisticated, had been around. Some have been, likes of a Pfizer has been around like 150 years. So very, very sophisticated global networks. You were basically just, everything kind of ran a little bit like clockwork. Came to Canada. Was lucky in a way. I landed in an organization called Me2We, where I was lucky enough to meet Nora back in the day. And that company / organization was the complete opposite. It had started maybe 15 years previous-ish. Was on the social enterprise side of the business, was a collection of businesses as opposed to one business. And so I came into that space where you had businesses that were doing a couple of $1 million each in revenue, but great products, great people, very innovative, had designed something that people had not actually thought of before, just like very, very different. And the front end was so amazing. The back end was terrible. Even though it took a lot of work to get that right, that level of entrepreneurship and seeing how my work to start to bring clarity on the financial side, start to bring clarity on how the different products were performing, how to bring clarity on how the different business units were performing, giving everybody a head start by forecasting the profitability of how the different business units were doing, transform the organization to such a point that I was getting pulled into like just the bigger meetings, and I was like, I love this. This doesn't feel like work. I was in a way, you're kind of like a number. You're part of a bigger system in the big multinationals. When you're working in the kind of smaller / fast growing startups, so much is dependent on you. Like things are being built for the very first time. You need to be able to consider 15 different considerations, to kind of tick the box all across the board. So that started the journey of like, when I kind of initially came into the startup space, along came COVID. That's like the first time that the fractional world started to become a thing. So we had unbelievable people in B2E. They got essentially scattered to every single part of the city / countries. People went different directions. I'd say at least 7 or 8 went and started their own businesses straight out the bat. I was still a little bit cautious at that point because my now 5-year-old, so this is 5 years ago, she was on the way. And so I decided to play it a little bit safer, and I moved. And so I moved to they had been another startup. They had been founded maybe 25 years previous, but they had gotten to $2 billion in revenue. They'd spread all across the Americas. So I went in there, I took over their financial planning and analysis team. And then like a year later, they gave me the tax team, the accounts payable team. Like again, it had gotten quite sophisticated in there. So they were a big finance team, 50 people. So I was managing about half the team, born into the CFO. And although I appreciated the founders and their vision to get something from 0 to 2 billion, I do think that takes a special skill set and a very special person and people. At the same time, well before I left, I was saying to my wife, if I were to go out and mimic what Nora has done or what, these other friends of mine that I worked with in Me2E who have gone out into this space have done, do you think, would you be on board with it? Could we afford it financially? Like, what are the risks, rewards? We were like really thought.
The CFO really asked that question.
We really thought it through and started with just myself. It's a funny story when I like think of it now, because I was so desperate for it to be a success that straight up I'm trying to calculate, like, people are like, well, so how much would it cost, if you came in a day, a week, or 2 days a week? And I'm doing the math in my head. And I wanted to give people such a good offer they wouldn't turn it down. So in my head, I was like, okay, I'm going to give them a 40% discount on what I was making before, because I'm going to get this started and I need to pay the mortgage. And so I did. So I come in, I think it was so low. I think I started on $50 an hour, which is slightly embarrassing now, but I was like $50 an hour. That's how desperate I was. But have not understanding the world really well either. My wife, Margaret, she was like so mad at me. She was like, you idiot, you have to pay from that $50 an hour. You also have to cover your EI, your CPP, your CPA, your laptop, your, all the other things that you take for granted that you were thinking of strictly from like a salary perspective, and that's it. And not so in my head, I was thinking $50 an hour is 100,000 a year.
Oh,
and I completely
forgot
so
about
much
all the
stuff.
other stuff.
I forgot about all that stuff, but it's funny then when I give people advice now, because people do come to me for advice and I talk to them and I say, to climb the ranks of the billable hour, you do need to put in the hard work as well. Because I went from 50, and then I think the next client I got up to 85, and then I got up to, the client after that I got up to 100, then I got up to 125, and then I got up to 150, 175, like now as of today, 200. But you really need to put in the work to be able to turn around to someone and quote them a price and know like this is your amount of like time that you can put into it, but the type of result you can deliver to them from a financial perspective needs to be like obviously considerably more than that.
Like a 5x, 10x.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Whether it be like time savings internally for their team, or whether it be peace of mind for somebody going to bed at night knowing that their business isn't going to run out of cash the following week and they don't even know it's coming.
Right.
Or just improving the profitability. Or I guess when you're your own business owner as well, you learn a lot of different skills that you don't get from maybe like a traditional finance hire, like if you went and got a full-time. Because when someone has had to go and set up their own business, they've had to learn marketing along the way, they've had to learn sales along the way, they've had to learn, obviously, the financial side of things. But taking a business and bringing it on that growth journey, I feel like I bring that, and I bring a special perspective to when we work with our client businesses as well. Because I go like, it's not just the financials as much as like I'm the subject matter expert when it comes to financials. I have sold in like 6-figure deals on behalf of clients to their customers as well. Sometimes there can be gaps, within their teams, especially small organizations that are growing fast. There can be changes in their leadership team, or sometimes just like there's deals that are not getting done. You can come in and like help push them over the line. I've done some like HR stuff. I've had to let people go on behalf of clients with the president of those organizations as well, because they don't have a HR person essentially.
So shifting from hey, Margaret, I'm going to go out and be a fractional CFO to now I'm running a company of fractional financial services and folks, right? Like that expansion. And you had mentioned like that entrepreneurial exposure, you kind of got that bite, and and hearing you talk about having to learn about other things. What kind of motivated you to continue down this path and to build HAB Strategy and do what you do?
Yeah. My vision was never for it to be a one-person shop. It was never my vision for it just to be me. I always have a love working with people, mentoring my team as well. I'd been from the previous place I was working in, there was 12 people reporting into me, direct and indirect. And that was my vision. I was like, I'm going to do this, but as I get this bigger, I'm going to start to build like a very smart, very savvy team. And so today we're up to 8 people on the finance team. We have 2 people on the fractional side as well, because I really do believe in that model. So we've got fractional marketing, fractional HR as well, who have added so much to the team. It's incredible. Even just for my brain to be able to not be an expert in like HR and people, or not be an expert in like the marketing, sales, partnership side. Things that they do in like 5 minutes is literally like hours of me agonizing over, am I getting it right? Am I missing anything? And just that amount of brain power, now I can just like really focus on doing what I do well.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And now you're 5 years in?
No.
4 years in?
No, 3. Three and a bit.
Oh my
3
goodness.
and a bit. Yeah, we started.
Good job.
Yeah, it was.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it was it 20, the end of 22, started 23, 24, 25. Yeah.
So
1st of January 2023 was officially our first day.
Wow.
Yeah.
So being first into like a fractional CFO position, but then building HAB Strategy that provides fractional financial services to scaling companies. I want to believe you're kind of in a unique position, both kind of running a company that believes in the fractional model, but being a fractional CFO yourself in these scaling companies. What have you seen that maybe leads you to believe the full-time model? You said you're a big believer in fractional, but the full-time model might be on shaky ground or might not be the only option given the circumstances and the times we find ourselves in.
Yeah. There's a lot of organizations that are really trying to figure out the AI boom right now. Roles are not just shifting, but certain roles are being in the process of being eliminated.
Right.
And I think in these times of like just massive change, adaptability does account for a lot more. And that's where I think the fractional model makes more sense, where you don't know where things are going to be like 6 months or 12 months from now. And instead of locking into kind of a very high paid, that all the bells and whistles that come with with what might be a full-time CFO, to have that level of adaptability where you can admit, I'm not sure, but I'm hiring not just one person, but I essentially am getting the brain power of multiple people. If you're like plugging into a model like ours, that really goes a long way. And you get that level of different skill sets at different levels as well. So someone doesn't need to be, you don't need to spend all your budget and someone's got this very particular niche skill set. You're a growing business. It's always going to come down to more than one thing. You're going to need someone to make sure the systems are configured properly and working properly and the data's flowing properly. You're going to need someone to make sure that the records are just even going in the right way. You're going to need someone that has the like soft skills that can go and talk to customers on your behalf, and that overdue AR that's 90 days overdue, they can like pick up the phone, and you don't have to be you as the owner don't need to be the bad cop trying to chase up on money. You don't need to be that person. All the way to just things like the cash flow forecasting, which is huge. There's lots of successful businesses that literally would not exist today were not for good cash flow forecasting. And because to get bigger, you typically have expenses up front before you see a return. So the fractional model, it seems to be getting bigger and bigger. I think I saw some study where it was like 10 years ago, someone did a study of how many roles they searched LinkedIn for the role fractional, some archive, and it was like 200 references came up, and then they did it again, like relatively recently. I think it was like a couple of months ago. It was something like 200,000 references. So
wow,
there's obviously this supply is coming, but there's obviously demand for the likes of 200,000 people as well. I think especially a lot of businesses that it didn't make sense from a budget perspective to go and splash 200 grand or 200 or $250,000 on one person or two people. They can go out and they can actually get that very specific skill set that they need, and they don't need it. They don't need someone sitting at their desk twiddling their thumbs for the other 50% of their week.
Right. Yeah, and just quickly, it's interesting on this like fractional being more popular, and I've kind of looked into the like exponential growth. And it's interesting. We were kind of joking, did just fractional get a rebrand? What did it used to be called part-time and now it's fractional? It sounds better or something. But I think what's also interesting when you look at that 200,000 roles, how many are senior level roles? So this idea that you could have let's say part-time CMO, a senior director, a not just part-time kind of folks who are coordinator, manager level, helping kind of execute and produce the work, which is also very important. But there's this shift to kind of it being more comfortable that you could have part-time or fractional throughout the organization, if not leading the organization.
At the highest levels. Yeah.
So it like really goes like if organizations, it's very clear they all need to be in a place that can readily adapt or be flexible or evolve. How are they being designed to do that, right? And if an org is expected to evolve, the leadership's going to have to evolve first, right? So it's interesting.
Sure. And I mean, I think we both have seen that same increase in both supply and demand for fractional roles, right? Like you have been a fractional COO in companies. I've been fractional CMO in a company. So there is definitely this thing happening. Yet at the same time, I also still feel that hesitancy, especially at those like more senior executive levels. What do you think? What do you think is holding people back? Like why do they still kind of overestimate, if you ask me, kind of the role of a full-time executive?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually, Bonnie. I think it's different for different people. I think for a certain amount of decision makers, it's a very new concept, and people tend to gravitate to what they're familiar with and what they know. I do see that a lot to like points that it's ridiculous. Of like people will acknowledge that something's not working, but people naturally don't like change as well. Or like at least they're like, well, I'm familiar with this. I've been through this, and it feels like a risk to try something different. There is a lot of uptake. I think it's just like it's a new world. And I think there's so many distractions nowadays as well. People are like, should I be spending more time on AI? Yeah. What's happening with the tariffs? Yeah. Like, and then I've got this other opportunity. They're like, I don't know where I should be putting my time. And I think another consideration is, I think consultants, quote unquote, some have gotten a bad rap in the past, especially like the big consulting firms have kind of have not made it, they haven't done the entire industry a great, anybody working in that space has been a little bit, has kind of a bad connotation with the kind of big consultancy firms. Yeah. I think they're very, very different models. So people sometimes don't understand the difference between fractional and consulting.
Right.
I always think of fractional as being more hands-on. Consultant is like, you can run something by me. Like I'll tell you what to
advisory.
Do. It's more like me picking up the book and just like reading a chapter of the book to you. Whereas what people need is not just the high level, but they need the implementation support of that as well. Yeah. So I think it's people not understanding the like how the two are different as well.
Interesting. Yeah. I hadn't thought about it that way. That could be conflating or confusing the two.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think so, especially in these times of uncertainty, and you've said it too, like people do feel the need for flexibility and adaptability, but maybe like change on change just becomes a little bit too much. But there's definitely that need for, I think, like both the strategic 30 foot view of like, where does this business need to go to the extent that we can still predict it, but then also be agile enough and adaptable enough and embedded in the work enough to know kind of how to get there. So I definitely recognize that those could be the benefits of like fractional roles. Just curious, the clients that you work with, are they at all various different types of organizations? Is there something about scale where it works better than in smaller organizations than bigger organizations? What do you see from types of organizations that you work with?
So organizations under a certain size, things are there's a combination of either things are simpler or they just can't afford fractional. So typically I'll say one of the first questions I'll ask if somebody reaches out to us and is interested in working with us, I'll say, what's your revenue level? Because if they say less than $1 million, I say you're too early in your journey. You still need to establish more product market fit and actually proving there's like a heavy demand for your product, because you don't need a CFO when you're as small as that. You need like, not that you don't, like a CFO should be like, there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of complexity. There's information coming from different areas and there's a lot of things that need to be brought together very simply. But if you've got a good controller, if you're, doing 800 grand a year, a good controller will actually do a great job for you. In fact, like a good controller will do a great job up to, 2, 3, 4 million ish. And it's as you start to evolve and there's more people coming on board and you need to push out accountability. You need, you've got bigger expenses. So if something gets stuck, like a big customer's not paying on time, the repercussions are bigger. You're maybe running multiple products now. So you like having them just like revenue and expenses and getting that every month is not going to be good enough. You're going to need to get it broken out so you understand what's making what margins, what's performing. You need to be forecasting into the future. You want to understand how this location versus that location is doing. So it's just a greater level of sophistication. There's more. It's a very, very busy organization. So that, like typically for us, we'll work with organizations $1 million to 10 million in revenue. I'd say about half are from the technology world. I never say SaaS because I just feel like that everybody gets lumped into SaaS, where there's actually a lot of great tech companies, but they're more disruptors to existing industries.
Right.
Whether, many things, like financial services, one that like really jumps out to me. Nobody thinks of Wealthsimple as I suppose nobody calls Wealthsimple a SaaS company.
No, exactly. Right.
They're a fintech company.
Yeah.
What they're doing is incredible. I think they've got like the biggest market cap out of all the Canadian companies, if not maybe the second or third biggest. That's essentially an important part of it.
So there's revenue levels, just maturity of the organization, complexity of the organization is what I'm hearing in there. But also somewhat like sometimes it's, as a controller, you tend to like look backwards more so, whereas at a certain point there becomes, you start getting this need for looking ahead, predicting, forecasting, and really strategizing and growing the business in a strategic way. And it sounds like that's kind of where the tipping point is for a fractional CFO, in your case, to be beneficial. Is there what are the considerations in those type of organizations that meet those criteria to then go from like they're growing, right? So I often see they feel the need to have more people. We need more hands. We have the work is like growing too fast for us to handle. How do you see them rethink kind of more people to what type of skills do I actually need? And is it maybe not more people, but to your earlier point, more different skill sets? Like what do you see kind of in your world, and how are those decisions being made?
Yeah, one of the biggest metrics in my world is the burn rate. So what are you committed to from a fixed expense every month? Right. So if your revenue is essentially zero, how much are you? It's normally payroll is the biggest component of it. It can be rent, it can be all your subscriptions. It's essentially what you're committed to. Payroll is, because of employment protection, is the hardest to move. So it's always locked in. So as much as people will love to just hire, there are financial considerations that don't make that practical as well. Right. So people are always faced with, tomorrow I would love to add 10 new roles to the team, but I've only got this amount of budget. How do I make this budget go as far as I can make it go?
For you the best way possible.
Yeah, exactly. So that we can get to the next milestone, and then we essentially unlocks more budget. So with the fractional model, obviously your investment is going to go a lot further. Yeah. You're only paying for what you use. Is essentially a big component of it. Linking in with bigger fractional organizations like HAB Strategy or Sidekick, where you're never going to get one person. You're essentially going to get a whole team of experts that your main point person in there can bring in. They can go like, this makes sense. I'm gonna need Anna to come in, for these 6 weeks for this particular project. But once this particular project is done and everything is like neat and tidy, now she can leave, and like we revert back. So that's what I really love about it, is like you essentially get all that like brain power. And
that's cool.
Yeah.
And the kind of something that's triggered for me is this like fit for purpose, which we kind of talked about earlier. And whether it's the organization size, maturity, sophistication, or even just that example there with Anna of like what the actual work is to do, it makes me think that if you're a leader of an organization, a founder or an owner, or a senior executive, and you're thinking like, what's the need of your organization? Because fractional might not be the right solution for you.
Not always.
But it may be the right solution for you, and it could be temporary, it could be long. And this is the thing when I talked, like the fractional could be like a 3-month stint, where I think sometimes it's like this committed of fractional, okay, like making a decision like it's going to last a year or two. It's like, it could be 3 to 6 months and that's it. And then what I also really loved is the examples of some organizations, it's not a good use of their funds to be spending it on fractional CFO. I've definitely had it where I've met with organizations and I'm like, listen, you are two senior experienced folks that like you need to get some more traction under your belt and product market fit and some more reoccurring revenues to make it make sense. Like, don't spend your money. Like, I'm happy to just talk to you out of, like call me on a Friday because I have nothing better to do on Friday nights, but call me and like, I'm happy to chat with you. But so if you're somebody listening to this that's thinking about making the jump to the fractional world, I think that's an important lesson to just not, oh, there's somebody that says they want my help and I'm just like, actually listen. And are you the right person at the right time in their sophistication to actually help them? And sometimes the answer is no. And you got to say, come back to me when you're twice as big and then we can talk, right? But then I thought about your example of you being a CMO, fractional CMO, that it was almost better that you came in almost at the outset, right? To help with like the launch and everything like that. So it's also maybe the type of function and the type of value that you're offering. Just don't be like, oh, all fractional roles are good when you're over $2 million in revenue. No, like there's a bit of that fit for purpose depending on the function and the value and the size and the maturity. Little puzzle to build.
And the leadership in place, right? And I know that we talked about this earlier. Like some founders have this kind of financial literacy or they have more of a marketing background. So then like depending on where you're comfortable and energized yourself as a leader or a founder, like pick those gaps where it's costing you like hours and hours to get something meaningful worked out versus 2 minutes of your time. Well, that might be exaggerating, but would get you in the same place, right? So I think there is definitely this fit for purpose from an organization stage, but also what's the current leadership in place.
Yeah. And at HAB Strategy, so your fractional services, so you do both kind of on embed yourself as their full suite of fractional accounting finances team. And then you also do kind of more one-off, like you were explaining this. Can you just
projects.
like walk us through like when you say fractional is offered by HAB Strategy, what does that look like?
Yeah. I think the biggest compliment that I get is the leadership team that we work with. They know we're fractional. There's often lots of people in the rest of the organization that assume we're full time. Obviously, we must be doing a pretty good job that they think we're just full time, and I have to let them know that we're fractional. Sometimes it doesn't even matter.
Right.
Yeah. So the way we work actually is we do a pod system. It's very rare that we go in as one person. Like we do have 2 or 3 outliers, but typically it's a pod system where we bring a finance team. So we're like a finance team for hire as opposed to a bookkeeper or a fractional CFO. It's like there's a full finance team, people with different skill sets and people at the right level doing the right work because that's where you're going to get the most return on investment. So it's typically a pod of 3 people. So we'll do a bookkeeper, senior accountant, we'll do a controller, and then we'll do a head of finance or CFO. And the way we work is someone from HAB Strategy is available 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. There's no like office hours where someone's available like 9 till 11, like, Monday to Friday, something like that. It's like when you've got 3 people, it actually means that you get a lot of dexterity, a lot of adaptability. And and because we work together a lot.
Yeah, you're not limited to like it's fractional, so I'm only there on Monday mornings.
Exactly.
Yeah. Gotcha.
And it kind of lends from like traditional agency models, right? Where you outsource almost to an agency and somebody is available Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 for you. And you get this like full suite of kind of skill sets or complementary skill sets, for the price of one almost, right? So if you are a leader that has a bit of a staffing challenge or is trying to design an organization to be resilient, like you can see, I think finance is probably the most proven case study, but we're definitely seeing it in more of an operations capacity where we've had 2 or 3 people where I've been kind of the fractional CFO, but 2 other people like join, and I've never heard it as a pod system. So that's going to start calling it.
Selling point.
We operate on a pod system, according to Dave Berney. So I think that's definitely interesting. And the other thing you said earlier that stuck with me is like, organizations, when hiring kind of a fractional, they will get more bang for their buck essentially. But there's also more transparency and pressure around the ROI that you generate for them, right? Can you give an example? And I don't know how transparent you're willing to be, so feel free to be loose on the details, but like at HAB Strategy with a client where you guys went in and felt that accountability of like, we need to demonstrate ROI and what that looked like for you in this pod model?
Yeah. We've been doing a lot of work with Forum Asset Management in the last few months, and it's been very enjoyable, but it's been very focused on results as well. So for the most part, we do fixed fees and, do all the standard things that come with fixed fees and monthly report and monthly bookkeeping, et cetera, et cetera. With Forum, what they're doing is they're acquiring a lot of companies and they're trying to essentially change management to like bring the companies to follow the same financial procedures, get everybody on the same accounting system. They need standard reporting because it's not great if you're up at the top in Forum and you're getting 6 different reports from 6 different companies in different formats. Someone on one side is saying cost of goods sold, someone else is calling it cost of service.
Right.
Someone over here is calling it marketing. Someone over here is calling it advertising. Like it would just drive you crazy and you can't see apples to apples. So we've been working with them. I guess every time we sit down and I talk to them about, I go, here's our billable hourly rates. And they'll say, okay, but give us an estimate of how much this will be, how much total we should per month this is going to be, and what we're going to get in return.
Right.
So there's very detailed statements of work done as well, where we go, okay, so the estimate will be, about this, it could be 10,000 a month. And we essentially have a little bit of a negotiation. So based on our track record and how good the team is and what we know is possible,
right,
we'll be able to say, like, we can get these things done. We can get all your 6 companies onto the same accounting system. We can fix, you're telling me you've got, this company's got $1 million more than a year old in accounts receivable. Like we're going to fix the process so that never happens again. We're going to change the AR days from, 90 down to 30, like very, very measurable metrics.
Tangible, yeah.
So it puts pressure on us in a good way because we're very accountable, and it's very different to a full-time hire where you can essentially buy time as a full-time hire and kind of point a finger. With us, if we're not doing a good job, we can just get turfed out at any given month.
That's true. So you got to prove yourself.
You have to prove yourself.
Day.
Yeah. And it's a great compliment then when they come back and we finish the statement of work, and as happened in January, and then I get a phone call from the partner in Forum a couple of days later and saying, hey, could you come and do another statement of work? Maybe a statement of work too.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I was like, yeah, of course.
That's
so
very cool.
That's
we're still
always
working with them.
a good sign. You're getting a lot of compliments. That's great. And I was actually thinking about it. Like, I can also imagine like people have to experience it, like what it's like to have a fractional CFO, fractional role, or fractional pod. What do you think, or what have you heard? Do organizations learn? Like, what are their ahas when they start working with you, or any fractional role for that matter? But like, what opens their eyes? I
like to think of it as not always, but like the ones that always stand out to me the most are like kind of the stunned silence when people see something for the first time. It's like you open up a whole new world, particularly when you focus. Particularly like they're at the point where they've got a couple of products or they've got some big customers, and taking the example of the customers, they see for the very first time that the profitability of each of these customers and whom they thought were their biggest and best customers actually like break even or losing the money. That's been that's happened a couple of times where there's been essentially a stunned silence,
right?
But also then had a very galvanizing effect because it feels like you're big strategic decisions after that become very, very easy because everything is driven by data. And it also makes what might be an emotional conversation with a customer, like it could be an emotional conversation with a customer if you're saying, hey, I'm going to have to raise your price because I'm on a gut feeling, I know I'm giving you this, we're doing so much for you, versus you've actually seen the data and you can quote to the dollar, we lost this in this month doing this for you, we're keeping the record. It communicates a good message as well. It shows that you as a business are very detail orientated, but also it strips the emotion out of a conversation about we're going to have to raise the price. And then if worse comes to worse, if we can't come to an agreement, you're walking away from something that was losing money for your company anyway.
So it's offering that stunt silence,
like that.
Through offering a different perspective. Like even though earlier you said like they'll experience us as if we're part of the team and we're full time there. So I think that's a great benefit or pro of like the fractional model. Like you're an outsider, but still you feel like part of the team, but you do have that edge of like you can bring a different perspective. You can look at the same data and the same things that people have been looking at for years, but just kind of offer that aha moment or a different insight. So I think that's a very valuable lesson from the fractional world. Yeah,
and the fractional world, I find you bring synergies when you're, as we've been talking about, there's so much going on. When you're working with a couple of different companies and you can see they're all trying different things, typically we'll take the best learnings and try and consolidate them and bring them back. So where you're seeing other companies, it might be in the marketing space or the sales space, but you're bringing some of those learnings back, or you're keeping an ear out when they're talking about, like, we've got this problem on the operations side, and you go, well, over here,
they had
other client, they had this as well. And then they reach out to Sidekick, and Sidekick completely fixed everything for them.
That's what happens every time.
Cross-functional and cross-industry knowledge that you bring in.
And we've had that experience too, where some organizations, and there's some industries that are biased this way, that it immediately when they're talking to us are, but what's your experience like in the food and bev industry? Like list off all of it. And fine. But it's like, but do you want to just keep doing what everybody else in the food and bev industry is doing, right? Where we've got line of sight into like these 20 industries working with these different, and it adds a different depth of perspective that I think you're right. If you bring on a full-time person, maybe they, through their own career experience, hopefully don't have too much because that means they bounced around a lot. But there is this multiplier effect that this theme that I'm seeing you talk about, to the benefit of fractional, of like multiple people, pods, multiple contributions, but it's still kind of down to the payment of one almost when you think of a full-time, and this multiple experiences, multiple functions. So there is
the flexibility to scale it up or down. There's the adaptability of that too. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm just thinking kind of like also as a bit of a conclusion or wrap to this conversation, if our listeners, like leaders or founders of scaling businesses, if they are at that point of like, they need these extra skills and they're considering their next leadership hire, what do you think they should be considering?
I think that's a great question. I think it all comes down to where they feel the current bottleneck in their business is, what's stopping them from growing. Because you'll find some businesses, they're saying the sales are coming in left, right, and center, but I, the owner, do not have capacity to be able to handle this. They might benefit from a great operations person, like someone that is like another quasi CEO that they can push that responsibility to then coordinate with the team and like pull all that together. If you're not bringing in the business, then you're obviously going to want to relook at it's either the product or it's like how you're marketing it. So you could be looking at it from both sides. Do we have it depends on what type of product you're building, but say if it's a tech product, are we building something that people really value, that people are really willing to pay money for? And then on the marketing side, like, are we talking to the right people? Have we identified who our ideal customer is, who's our ideal customer profile is, or are we just like blasting this out like
Right.
shotgun like? If you're getting to the point that you're staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m. in the morning because you're worried about cash flow, you should probably send us a message on habstrategy.ca.
No promos allowed.
Yeah.
Slipped it in there.
So
But there is something of this, like, and it's one of the questions we bring up. What problem are you truly trying to solve?
yes.
And maybe if you're speaking to somebody who's a founder or an owner of a scaling company where it's pressing out, what's keeping you up at night? Like that might be the instinctual of what your solution is. But I think of folks who are working in these big global juggernauts like you had been at too, right? Where it's just growing very quickly. And the default is always more headcount, more headcount.
Yeah.
Like, is more headcount always the solution based off of like full-time headcount based off of the problem you're trying to solve? And there seems to be an increased supply that folks are, and your story of COVID, I think, is probably a lot of people's story. It was my story. I think it was partly your story too, right? That there sometimes are these circumstances where now there's a lot of people out there who are doing fractional gigs, or that's kind of what their livelihood is based on.
Fractional curious.
Yeah,
Maybe along those lines, and I know I have to wrap it up, but quickly, we've been looking at it from a hiring perspective, from the organizations kind of who might consider fractional. I'm just realizing like we might also have listeners who are in a senior leadership role currently at one of those big organizations and have maybe thought about like a more entrepreneurial thing or like embarking on this like fractional journey. What would be your advice to them?
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of curiosity out there. People do like the idea of the becoming their own boss. That they associate it with a lot of freedom, and I guess when they see people doing well, the people that are doing well make it look so easy as well.
Yeah.
And they just think, well, I can replicate that. It's a very different skill set. You have to be a bit of a jack of all trades, first of all, especially when you're starting out by yourself, because you might be an unbelievable engineer, you might be an unbelievable finance person, you're going to have to start to market yourself and sell yourself, which is a whole different skill set.
Yeah.
If you happen to be on the other side and you're an unbelievable marketing / salesperson, relationships person, how are you going to keep record? How are you going to keep record of how you're growing and you're not essentially like bleeding margin? You're pricing properly.
Paying the CRA.
You're paying the CRA.
Time.
Exactly. That's important. And as you're building a team, making sure that you're taking into account that there's cash on hand to get them paid. There's a lot of different considerations like that. So that's consideration number one. And then I would say consideration number two is, what's your risk level like? Because you need to be very, very comfortable at risk and like everything disappearing tomorrow.
Right. Yeah.
So the great thing is, I always think of it as something like being a tiger, because I was actually at a little mini zoo there like 2 weeks ago. I was bringing the kids to it, and they were saying that the tigers in that little animal kingdom, there were something like 20% heavier or 30% heavier than tigers you'd see in the wild. Right. Because they're getting fed, like they don't have to move.
Right.
But the downside for them is they're stuck in this little cage all day and kind of there to entertain people. Versus like a tiger out in the wild, you're a little bit hungrier, you're a little bit leaner, but you've got so much freedom and you just have this, there's no ceiling essentially. In a way to work, if you can survive the world as your oyster and you can
So it's a high risk, high reward type of mindset, and you really need to have the personality that works or that thrives in that environment.
Yeah.
And the various different skills that you'll have to learn if you're running, whether it is a business or like your own solopreneur business.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think you found a nice model there with also hiring your own fractional support system, right? So there's also something to say to partnering with other like-minded fractionals. So I think that's a nice one to end with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it's not just a blip on the radar trend, but something that's here to stay and that will continue. So for folks to either consider it for themselves, or if you need to hire or whatever challenge you're facing in your business, like think about is Fractional the option for me?
Yeah.
Which is very cool. Great. Yeah. Well, we will wrap up. I don't know if we told you about this in advance, but we like to end, but I know you're an avid Momentum with Sidekick listener, so you probably already know this, but we like to end each episode with a challenge. So today's listener challenge is, before you make your next hire, pause and ask yourself, what expertise does my business actually need right now and for how long? And then make the decision. You think that's a good listener challenge for people?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
It's like deep. I'm like trying to process that.
But you hear it all the time of like, well, I need more headcount. We need more people.
Yeah.
It's like, pause and go,
what is it that you need?
Yeah.
Right? What does your business need? What is that challenge? What's that problem you're trying to solve?
Sometimes it's getting to the root cause as well. Because sometimes you think it's this, but it's like you bring in this. Like I'll use an example of, we're not making enough revenue. Great. So is the answer hire like a kick-ass salesperson? Let's just pause before that. Do we have any type of feedback on our product thus far?
Yeah.
Do we actually know that we have an unbelievable product?
Yeah.
Can
so maybe the issue with the sales is not the sales, like a missing salesperson. It's actually like the product is like not unique, or it's, you know, it's not, people just don't see value in it.
Yeah. Wow. Good one.
Good.
Yeah.
So let's leave it on that note. What problem you're actually trying to solve? And maybe Fractional is the solution. Maybe it's not. So with that being said, thank you, Dave, for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Sharing all your words of wisdom and insight. And I think just like the tangible examples that you've lived and are seeing at HAB Strategy, hopefully have given our listeners lots of tidbits to take away with them. But it's been a real pleasure.
Yeah,
Thanks
likewise.
so much.
Great. Thank you. Well, thank you for joining us today. This has been Momentum with Sidekick. We want to hear what you're getting up to in the world. Hopefully you learned a lot from today's discussion. So follow us, subscribe, leave us a comment, and we'll catch you next time.